hour on a Saturday evening.
Thank you.
Okay, you said
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. You said you're from New Hope Christian College?
I am.
Okay, could you just give me some of your background in terms of your education? Because I need to understand. There's just been a lot of talk, and I need to understand what your background is.
Okay. I have 3 master's degrees. I have a master's in immunohematology, which is blood banking. I served as the chief of the Air Force Blood Program and the head of the Department of Defense Blood Program, 30 years in the military. I have a master's in strategic resource planning. I also have a very bad cold, so forgive the pauses to swallow here. I also have a master's in transformational leadership from Bethel Seminary.
So you have a background in theology?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I went to seminary.
Okay. Mr. Ward, I don't know if you heard earlier, there's been a lot of talk about the Bible and all the hypocrisy in the Bible and how Solomon had 7,000 wives and all that. I mean, I don't even know what that was. But I'm just asking you, as someone with a background in theology, can you please, because there was a lot of exchange going back and forth about Deuteronomy and the hypocrisy in the Bible and all of that. And, you know, quite frankly, I don't really want to go there, but I just feel that with someone with your background who actually has a master's, could you just kind of give us some insight? Because there was a lot of discussion over it, and I just kind of want to clarify that.
Sure, absolutely. The Bible is more than just a theology book. It's a history of its people. And simply because it documents a practice does not mean that it advocates that practice. In fact, there are many stories in the Bible that are forbidden by God. And just because it says that this happened didn't mean it was his choice. So we have a number of instances, the number of wives that Solomon had. That was never God's intent. And that was clarified in the New Testament.
But oftentimes from opponents, I hear things like, well, homosexuality is wrong. The Bible says it's wrong. So how do you reconcile that with what you've just explained?
Well, that's a whole different issue. There are a number of clear moral guidelines that the Bible points out. There are a number of scriptures that talk about things that God abhors. And homosexuality is mentioned in a number of scriptures, not just in the Old Testament, but in the New Testament as well. Now, I do want to say this. There are many sins, and everyone in this room has committed a sin. Just because they've committed a sin doesn't mean that they're going to hell. The difference is the sin confessed? The primary issue that I have as a Christian minister is not sin, because I have sinned. The issue is that through Christ, I have forgiveness of my sin. But forgiveness has to be confessed and repented of.
Okay.
I mean, the sin has to be confessed and repented.
We didn't actually receive your written testimony, and I did somewhat listen to your verbal testimony, but I'm still just trying to understand, why are you opposed to Senate Bill 1?
In a number of reasons. I'm opposed to it morally. Now, as I did say in my testimony, I am not opposed with giving the LGBT community all of those tax benefits. I'm happy to do that. In fact, if we could do it at the state level, I would be happy to provide it. My issue here is not the tax benefits. In terms of the coffers of the United States of America or the state of Hawaii, it is almost negligible, the numbers that we're talking about. That really isn't the issue. The issue is the incremental advancement of something that I abhor and that I think is incorrect. I told you in my testimony I have 9 grandchildren. I'm very much worried about what they are going to be forced to be taught as they enroll in school. I'm also worried about the sliding of America into a moral abyss. There are lines that we should not cross. This is one of them. So my primary reason for sitting in that hall for 30 hours this week is for the 2 minutes to go on record. This issue is about the word marriage. That's the issue. It's not about the rights. It's about the codification of something that was never meant to be as marriage. I'll give them the monies they want. You know, I'll favor that.
Okay, Mr.
And we ought to write legislation, and that's what SB1 ought to do, is clarify that part of it, not redefine marriage for society.
Okay, so Mr. Ward, do you have issues with any of the religious exemptions in this bill?
I do. And the problem is the accommodations law. It's not just an issue for my church, and we have a Christian school where I worship as well. It's a problem with many of our parishioners. We have 5,000 people that attend my church. Many of them are Christian business persons. And if they're forced to violate their moral guidelines in conducting business, or they will be forced to shut down, that's an issue. We heard earlier from the minister from Kalihi Union Church. That was a powerful testimony about what's happened in Canada. This thing takes on a life of its own once it goes to the courts. You guys have got to make sure this is ironclad before you pass it. And after going through the Senate and the House, there is enough doubt any reasonable person would say we are not ready.
Okay, so you have, I mean, besides the moral issues that you have with this bill, you still have an issue with
Absolutely.
particularly
The accommodations issue that we've mentioned, the heritage issue. There are a number of problems that are problems with this bill.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ward.
Okay, unless someone else has a question, I'm going to go back to Representative McDermott.
Yes, could I have Ms. Jacobs, Belinda? Ms. Jacobs, you seem to be armed with a lot of facts with regards to HIV, AIDS,